All right, let's get into the paper review now and get familiar with the stories making headlines this morning across the papers in Nigeria.
Indeed, and we start off with the Punch newspaper. The major story on the front page is Saraki faces fresh CCT trial to appeal at Supreme Court. With the rider, appeal court reverses acquittal, orders trial to continue on 3 counts. And of course, to analyze the stories on the front pages of these papers with us in the studio is Ayodele Adio. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having
nice to see you.
Yes,
Same here.
Yeah. So what do you feel about this story on Saraki as he faces
quite
just 3 counts
quite an
now,
interesting story because it was a unanimous decision by the 3 judges of the appellate court who wanted it to go for retrial. Well, I don't know why he feels he was vindicated because he's come out to say that he's been vindicated by...
Of course, out of 18 counts.
Yes, I mean it's 3. But those 3 are also still weighty because it says that he falsely declared certain assets that he bought in Ikoyi after he left the governorship office in 2011. So let's see how it goes in the retrial back at the CCT.
Okay, so let's go to another story now. TSA, that's atop the Punch newspaper by the left. TSA, reps query Buhari's exemption of 50 billion naira NNPC accounts. Now, this is generating reactions from Nigerians because it's been in public now that the presidency, somehow allowed the NNPC to keep some funds out of the TSA to still keep some accounts active outside the TSA commercial banks.
Yeah, I mean, the reps are taking no prisoners on this because they're asking the very important question, are the NNPC or is the NNPC above the law? Because the NNPC these days seems to be taking decisions that opposite most of the law. And so it's important that the question is being asked. And, we keep hitting the brick wall because at the end of the day, the president is the minister of petroleum, and the buck stops at his table. And so who knows? Because it doesn't make sense that the NNPC can separate funds and while other organizations cannot. If you remember the battle with Intels, the reason specifically stated was because Intels were not complying with the TSA policy. And so if you can indict organizations and you can indict agencies of government for doing that, why is the NNPC exempted at the end of the day? So it brings, I'm glad that the members are taking this issue very seriously and the questions need to be answered.
But the cash cow is somehow treated as a sacred cow.
You can see that again.
You can see that again, really. All right, let's move to the Nation newspaper now. Court of Appeal to Saraki, you have case to answer. You've talked about this. Now, 2019, PDP begins search for candidates. Now, this is going to open, because from the convention that was held last Saturday, it's becoming obvious that there are new kids on the block. The governors are becoming very formidable and are becoming a strong force.
Oh yes, the governors in every political party have always been formidable, have always been a strong political bloc and a strong deciding factor in who emerges in whatever position of the party. Of course, there's a gentleman agreement that the presidency is going to be zoned to the north. And the likes of Sule Lamido and, of course, Atiku Abubakar. He said he's not going to run, but he has a legitimate right to. And so they're jostling, and hopefully one of these individuals are going to nick it. I have a fair idea who's going to nick it at the end of the day, but let's see how it plays out in the coming year.
This brings to mind what the Modishari said sometime when he was having issues back and forth with McCarthy in court, and it was posted when he was interviewed by another media organization in the country that it's a plan really being worked out by the governors to bring in Secondus as the national chairman of the party, and then another person from the ruling APC that time could be brought in to become the candidate of the party, but some I think they are working.
Well, the point is we see these things playing out as politics. They say 1 hour can mean so much.
Oh yes, oh yes. I mean, one shouldn't be surprised that Secondus emerged because he's from the region that has the most governors in the PDP, and they are the ones who are oiling the party at the moment. So of course you expect that that part of the country is going to produce, the president, the chairperson of the PDP. Now, whether that influences who emerges as the candidate for the presidential elections is a different kettle of fish entirely. The PDP wants somebody who can compete, with, the incumbent in 2019. I do not think McCarthy is that person. Maybe Sule Lamido, maybe Atiku Abubakar might stand a fairer chance, you know, than Makarfi.
There are also reports that there is a mounting pressure on Kwankwaso, who certainly has a lot of support in Kano.
Yes.
Shekarau, the former governor of Kano State, is also there. That's
president.
Yeah, but the point there is, the issue there is, any one single political party that wins Kano and wins Lagos at the same time would most likely win the presidency. So the point there is, they need to look for how to handle Kano, because it looks like Lagos is already predictable. You know where Lagos may go when it comes to the next general election, but the soul of Kano may. No,
but interestingly, if you followed the politics from '99, you wouldn't really call Lagos a deciding factor in any elections, because if you go after elections, the margins in Lagos State have not been fantastic. People have won just by 100,000 votes, 200,000 votes. Lagos has always been a close call at the end of the day. Kano, yes, has been, you know, a swing state, particularly because you've always had northern candidates taking up a candidate from the south or what have you. And then it's been President Buhari's political strong base. And I've always made the argument that when people talk about President Buhari having some 12 million votes stacked up somewhere, I've always argued that it's an illusion. The real strength President Buhari has in the core northwestern states, which is Kano, Katsina, Sokoto, Zamfara, and Kebbi. Those are his core states that have delivered consistently. Now, the question you'd want to ask is, when he went up against another candidate from the northwest, how did he do in those states? Because Yaradua beat him in most of those states, except, of course, Kano, which he beat Yaradua. So I foresee that if you pick up a candidate as strong as Rabiu Kwankwaso, who has a strong political base in the north, has some spread in the northwestern states, who seems a bit more cosmopolitan and can appeal to a few people in the southwest and the southeast, he's going to give President Buhari a run for his money.
But then there's still the calculation of getting a spread. You have to spread. It's not about you just winning a few states. You have to spread across the country
a good VP will give you the required
edge. Exactly. And then the last headline here from The Nation we're going to take said, JAMB remits 3 billion naira more to Federation account. We've been following this all the while. Before now, no one knew that there's so much money in JAMB.
Professor Loide seems to be doing a lot of magic
here.
I'm super proud of him because he did a fantastic job as VC in University of Ilorin. Took the institutions to, you know, enviable heights. And he's coming to JAMB and he's doing the same thing he did in Ilorin. He's taking no prisoners, he's doing his job diligently, and he's making us proud. But you also want to ask the question, what has been happening to JAMB over the years?
Over the years.
You know, you want to sit down listen, you see, I keep saying this about a country like ours who is refusing to move forward. You remember that the South Korean president was deposed earlier this year for allegations of corruptions. And of course, it was said that the head of the secret service in their country were giving her bribes. The country is investigating 3 of the previous head of the intelligence organization, and all of them are answering questions to prove why they have been giving monies to presidents over time, because they argue that it's something that they usually do, is within their rights.
Exactly.
But questioning
being charged on even using the influence, enjoying the influence of
so
the president.
they are charging every single, the last 3 chief of their spy chiefs in the last 3 administrations. But here we are. We realize that Oloide has raked in over 7 billion, you know, into the government coffers from JAMB. And we're not asking the tough questions. For the first time ever.
And we're not asking questions in the past.
Come on. Ojerinde Disu, what happened to you during your time? How come you guys have not been remitting this same amount?
The first time he remitted that particular amount that got many people asking questions, nothing was said after 2 weeks or 3 weeks after. Now this one again. So what's the assurance that there could be any tangible move to open up the place for investigation?
Listen, it's like the more you look, the less you see.
The less you understand.
I cannot understand that if you want to move forward, you need to tidy up the ghosts in the past. People need to come up and answer questions why it was impossible for you to remit these kinds of amounts, except JAMB forms were sold for free.
Exactly.
Before Professor Loide came into office. Except everywhere was leaking. I mean, you need to explain to Nigerians how come you move from raking in a few millions of naira to 7 billion. I mean, the quantum leap is unimaginable within a year.
All right, so we move to another paper now, the Daily Sun. So, and it brings us again back to politics, what we're still discussing before the JAMB story. And you talked about having a vice presidential candidate that is strong enough in another region to rack up votes for a presidential candidate. So, here's the big story on the front page of the Daily Sun. 2019, Buhari may pick Tinubu as VP. With riders, Osinbajo Mall's return to full church work. Of course, we know he's a pastor. We have nothing to say on the matter, ex-Lagos governor's camp. So, going back to choosing the right running mate, but then, can we take this to the bank?
I don't think the Jagaban of Borgo will be willing to be VP at this time to President Buhari. I really doubt. He was going to be in 2015. The calculations didn't work out. The party felt that fielding a Muslim ticket was not going to fly, and hence, you know, the agreement to go with Osinbajo. At this time, I am really not sure if this arrangement is. I don't think so. Even though you know, Tinubu has been out saying that there are going to be free and fair primaries, you know, for the presidential candidate to emerge in the APC. In fact, even had a bit of a running with Governor Okorocha on that. So I just don't see that happening. If it does, it just could scuttle. The whole political arrangement is just going to change, because for me, the way it's working, Professor Osinbajo seems to hold the joker, and that joker that he holds is to appeal to a certain segment of the voting bloc, which is significant, and you don't want to outsource that. You don't want to lose that at the end of the day. Yes. So because if you have a hard conservative northerner as a candidate, you want somebody from the south who is not just from the south, who also has the ability to screw in, if you like, Christian votes in the swing states. So that's what Professor Osinbajo gives you.
It's quite sensitive at this time, really. If well, we are here to hear what
this report or this permutation have you know, been flying here and there, but some analysts have said in the past that Tinubu certainly would not accept.
And that's the point. That's why I said it again from the beginning. I don't think he's going to accept a VP. If you put it simply, I think he's outgrown the position of the vice president.
I think he's
outgrown the position of the vice president. So there's no way he's going to be answering, you know, being the left arm of President Buhari in 2019. I don't see that happening.
And he is getting a lot of glory, being the kingmaker.
Exactly.
Anyway, now.
Exactly.
All right, so we'll look at another story here, downward. North, not afraid of restructuring. That's according to Governor Masari of Christina. Address insecurity in region first, says Saraki. Now, of course, since the call for restructuring in the country began, many people that want it have been talking from the southern part of the country. Most people from the northern part were saying that, no, we don't want restructuring. And even Atiku at that time, when it was still with the APC, was saying that northerners are saying they don't want it because they are just lazy. So maybe he's building on this, saying that they're not afraid of it.
I've heard this argument 1,000 times over, you know, where people talk about, you know, I have friends in the Southwest who feel that the North doesn't want restructuring because they are lazy and they might be the ones who are left out at the end of the day. And here's the thing, I think people need to understand this fact, that the North is not particularly poor as a region because they are lazy. In fact, if you put in man-hour time, you know, tilling the ground, I think they even work as hard, if not more hard than we do.
Harder, exactly.
The North is poor because of clear geographical permutations. The climate in the North is unfavorable for the farmers who are tilling the ground and is eroding their produce in that particular region.
But they still supply the food Nigerians eat easily.
Secondly, the reason why the South was more prosperous than the North, even in the 60s and the 70s, is because the products that we produced, our cash crops, were more valuable in the international market than what the North was producing. So we could rake in more money from cocoa and what have you than they were making from groundnuts. So it wasn't a function of hard work per se, but a function of the fortune that you have, that your produce
and geographical position.
And that your produce commanded more value in the international market than theirs did. So even if you put it the same way it's happening today, that the South has oil and the North does not. So there's no way you can compare what you generate from the South with what you generate from the North. So it's not a function that they are lazy at the end of the day. So if you want to have this restructuring debate, we need to move away from the fact that a region is being lazy and a region is hardworking.
Exactly.
If you don't move past that, we're not going to make progress.
I wonder why Atiku said it.
Well,
right.
I mean, I just don't know.
Okay. Finally, the Vanguard newspaper, Northern senators tackle Southern counterparts, say it's unfair to ask Buhari to implement report of the 2014 Confab report. No restructuring can happen without the National Assembly. Saraki is saying that. Well, the issue of implementing the 2014 Confab report is still on. It's a debate.
Yes, it's a debate that will keep lingering. A few people assumed that the confab of the 2014 was just a political gambit by the Jonathan administration, even though most you had top cerebral minds going to debate the issues in the 2014 confab and came out with a position. The real question is, does this country require a restructuring? The answer is yes. And once we agree that the country needs to be restructured, what we need to agree is on what lines are we going to restructure this country. And then we can have a conversation and a debate about that. So whether or not you're going to implement the 2014 confab is irrelevant. What is relevant is the conversation as to how we are going to restructure this country for better performance.
For better, towards moving forward. We have another report here. My regrets as head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, is saying that he was certainly... it's kind of a paradox. He was trying to make a statement as to the reason why when he had the powers to move the headquarters of Nigeria, the capital of Nigeria, from Lagos to Jos, that he would have done it, but he decided for national interest not to do it that way. Well, we have other CCT trial. Appeal court orders federal government to reopen case against Saraki, and Amechi tackles Jonathan on $65 billion left by Obasanjo. World Cup shocker, FIFA fined Nigeria. Okay, these are some of the headlines. We have to end it now so that we can go to the next discussion. But thank you, Ayodele Adio. But we'll keep you for the next discussion as we talk about fuel scarcity in the country. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast. We'll go on a break briefly and we'll be back